passe super l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Boysen. Han setter den! Han setter den! De I semifinale igjen!
Hello there, handball fans. It's Chris O'Reilly here from the Uninformed Handball Hour with a little intro before we go into the first part of the live show we did on Sunday, celebrating passing 200 episodes of this lovely handball podcast. And to celebrate it, we put together one hell of a lineup for you. We had Yahia Omar, Rasmus Boysen, and Courtney Gahan, three of our favourite people to talk to. We had a fourth one lined up, Eduarda Amarim, but unfortunately she couldn't join us because she has a very good reason why, which I'm not sure we should share at the moment, but hopefully the good news will be shared with you all at one point very soon, and then we can talk about it. But what we did do was have the three of them on together and a bunch of you who support us on Patreon. We invited all of our Patreon subscribers who were available on the Sunday to come and join us on Zoom to be a part of it, even add a few words as well at different points. There'll be some familiar voices and some not so familiar voices. But for the most part, it was the six of us, me, Alex, Brian, as well as Courtney, Rasmus and Yahia. And we had a fantastic time. We were over 2 hours on the call in total. And we went through most of what we planned to do. And what we're going to do is share bits of the live show in different podcasts. So with episode 201, today we have the first part, which is a bit of a Champions League preview review, looking at the quarterfinals of what just happened last weekend in the women's competition and looking ahead to this week's quarterfinals in the men's competition. The second part was a big old debate as we tried somehow to create the all-time all-star team in men's handball. Yeah, that was the challenge. But we got there, I think, in the end. That's going to be part 2, which is coming out in a couple of days. And then part 3, because we had such a worldwide group of guests as well as audience, we talked about handball as a global sport and what we can do, what can be done to make it a more global sport and not have it so focused on Europe in years to come. Some really interesting points and conversations from everyone involved. We had a blast, and thank you for those of you who did join us live. And for those of you who couldn't make it, well, you'll get a chance to listen back now. So let's dive into part 1 right now.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour, and we're here today joined by myself, Brian Campion, Chris O'Reilly, Alex Kulesh, three wonderful guests, Courtney Gahan, Yahia Omar and Rasmus Boysen, for us to celebrate our 200th episode of the Uninformed Handball Hour, and loads of wonderful guests who are all on mute at the moment but might join in a little bit later. So Chris, what are we doing today then?
Nice, thank you, Brian. You did it one take. Great job.
That's it.
Live.
Everyone is live is different.
Yes. We were going to have Eduarda Amarim as well, but she has a very, very good reason for not being here at the moment, which we can't go into, but maybe later when the podcast comes out and there's good news connected with that, we can talk about that. But trust us, she has a very good reason for not being with us. But we do have three wonderful guests to cover for her. And yeah, today we're going to go through a little celebration of our 200 episodes as the Uninformed Handball Hour. We're going to go through some, broad topics as well as some topical ones. So of course, we're going to go through a little bit on the Champions League, with the women's side just completing the quarterfinals. So now we know the final 4 participants, and of course the men's quarterfinal coming up this week and the following week. We're also then, with the help of you and our 3 special guests, come up with the all-time all-star team in men's handball. So throughout the history of the sport, for as long as we can, we're all quite young here, but maybe we'll look back a little bit further and see if we can come up with an all-time best 7 in our humble opinions. And that's where we want your help with as well. After that, we're also going to talk about the current Champions League format, which is a bit of a topic that's close to Alex Kulesh's heart, and he's going to tell us how to fix the competition. That's going to be a fun one, and looking forward to everyone disagreeing with that later on.
I have a spreadsheet, so I can actually share the spreadsheet if that doesn't bore everyone. But I
can see how happy Yahia's face is with the prospect of that. And then, because we have quite an international or worldwide audience as well as the guests here, we're also going to talk a little bit about handball as a global sport and what we can all do to make it even more non-European centric in the future. Also, all of you who joined us, please do put in any questions you have, any remarks about the things we're talking about into the chat as well, and we'll get to that at various points in the evening, because I have a look at of it here, and Alex is going to keep an eye on that as well. There he is saying, welcome everyone. Okay, so let's dive into it. And we'll do a quick little bit on the women's quarterfinals, because there was a shocking result there. And Brian Campion, you were not at the shocking result, but you are in Bucharest right now, where you were just watching Chessama against Team Esbjerg.
I was, yeah, and it's a shame I wasn't an FTC, knowing my love for the club. But yeah, Team Esbjerg got the job done. A lot of people were saying beforehand, it's hard to beat Team Esbjerg, and it's definitely hard to beat them by 4 goals. And it never really looked too likely for Chessama. 2 red cards kind of killed it off for them. The first one for Emily Arts, and I don't know where that came from. I don't know what it was exactly, but the second one was probably justified. Overall, I think Team Esbjerg are too strong for them. Too much going on at the backcourt, and it's a lot of tears in the hall, a lot of people crying afterwards. A few players retiring as well, so it was an emotional end to the season. The whole crowd stuck around for the whole thing afterwards as well, so they wanted to thank the team, because I think they've played very well this season, but just Esbjerg were just too good for them. Every time it came close, they just put their foot down once again and pulled away. So props to Team Esbjerg, and interesting to know what's going to happen now with the friend of the podcast, Adrian Vasily, if he's going to continue now or where he'll go from here, because it seems like a bit of a crossroads. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him and that project.
But tell me about that first red card, because I was at a different event during the afternoon, so I didn't get to watch the game live. I tried to cheat and watch the highlights, but there's this really annoying thing about the highlights now, where whenever there's a red card, they show the red card being dished out, but they don't show what happened. They don't show the actual incident. Then what happened?
Hard to say. I mean, it went in into Vilda on the line, and Artsen was marking her. She was standing inside, and I think she fell awkwardly, Vilda, and the referee deemed it as dangerous play, and nobody in the arena saw it as dangerous play. I was rewatching it when I recorded on my camera, and I couldn't see anything wrong with it, so I understood the protests around it. I don't know what they were saying. Maybe it was something before that, but I really couldn't fathom why it was a red card.
Courtney, what handball were you watching this weekend?
You don't we're going to throw me under the bus.
No, that's why I asked the question. So we don't throw you under the bus.
Well, I've read up on the scores and stuff, but
yes.
If I'm not working, I'm not watching the match.
That's right. This is how Alex does every single podcast, so that's fine. We'll just pretend that.
Oh, don't give away the secrets. I'm watching every single game. Every single game. Every tweet is coming out. I'm trying to be like Rasmus, who actually watches every single game.
I actually watched the first half of the match. I didn't have the opportunity to watch the second half, but I felt like in the end of the first half, it felt like the Bucharesti, they had some momentum and everything like that. So I don't know what happened in the second half.
Few red cards usually don't help with that. But yeah, maybe talking about momentum. FTC, what happened there? How did Mets really throw away that game at home with a 6-goal lead? FTC came out with 7-goal victory, 59-58 on aggregate. FTC in their very first EHF Final Four. And finally proving all the doubters wrong and proving Brian Campion right. Or are you a downer? Are you?
I don't know.
I don't even know where you stand with FTC these days. Like, what's your feeling?
Me? You talking to me now?
Yeah.
I love FTC. That's why I'm like a tough father, tough father figure. I want them to do well. And then they always let me down. So I'm really genuinely happy that they got to the Final Four. And I think it's going to just make the whole final event just that little bit crazier, because I think it's just going to be a sea of green the whole weekend. So that I think it's going to be really, really special. It's not their first one, though, is it?
It is.
It is.
First Final Four. They made
semi-finals. Yeah.
Yeah, they made semi-final and a final into before, but that was before the Final Four format.
Yeah, so first Final Four event, which is going to be really cool. So, but bring Andrea Lekic into your team and you make it to the Final Four. That's the recipe there, I think.
I really think that's it. It's just that winning mentality. Like FTC for years just didn't have it, and they brought in a proven winner, a proven superstar, even not at her peak, but like the change in mentality that a veteran like that can bring is pretty huge. Yeah. Is there any like players in the veteran dressing room who are kind of have that winning mentality? Who's like the person who just refuses to lose?
I think a lot of guys. The team is very competitive. There are some more than others for sure. Some even to an extent that is a little bit too much.
It's like Kenton Maya.
He is one tough one. Yeah, really. Tsupara is really much. Nenadic is for sure. These guys were like not even in the games, but in the warm up. So you can basically understand how it goes. They're always on other like the two teams in the warm up when we make like some football or like plastic ball stuff to warm up the team, and it's always fighting all the time. So yeah, it's fun also.
Are you able to give us a little bit of perspective here? Because you've been living in Hungary now the last couple of years. There's a very similar kind of rivalry and expectation on the men's side with Veszprém and Szeged. There's never been an occasion where both have qualified for the Final Four, but now we're going to have, for the first time, the women's side, Győr and FTC. Do you have any thoughts on what that means to the country and to the handball fans over there?
I think it's big because the country is really, passionate about handball, and they're like really hotheads. When they're in the stadium, when they're in the hall, in the arenas, they're not watching just to clap or watching to get entertained. They're watching because if you lose, they're gonna be really sad after. But if you win, they're gonna be really happy. And I feel that is this thing is too important and really important in handball, because when the fans are not only supporting but like it affects them, they're into the sport too much. Like what we see in football and people going crazy about the games, and this is really important to the sport because it doesn't get boring. People are always sad if you lose or depressed, and then really happy that they're crying. And this emotion is really important in handball. I think the Hungarians are one of the countries that have this really good, and rivalry makes it even better. Derbies are the best thing in handball and best thing in sports, that you have people talking about their teams all year long. In every game, they want their team to be better, and for two teams from the same country like Hungary to be in the Final Four, I can imagine how it would be in the men's side. So on the women's side also, it is really big for them, and I really enjoy watching them and watching their fans. They're supporting like I think it's one sport for women which fans are really, really passionate about. I don't see it in other sports too much.
You mentioned the derby side of it. Isn't that just the semi-final draw is going to be on Tuesday? It can't be anything except FTC against Győr in one semi-final and then Esbjerg against Vipers in the other. That is the perfect pair of semi-finals. Am I right, Courtney?
No, I mean, well,
No.
I see your point, but I have to say I'm kind of with Brian. I'm a fan of FTC. I wouldn't mind to see them. I feel like it would be tougher to face Gür, the most experienced at the Final Four. So I'd like to see them face someone else. So,
But FTC have their number this year. They won the Hungarian Cup. They've been beating Gür a little more frequently these days. So that's I don't know. I don't know if they're in their head at the moment or just it doesn't really matter. It comes down to the day either team can win.
it does. And the truth is, we've seen at the Final Four usually pretty tough for the debutants to win the semi-final. So let's see about that factor. I think it's a pretty strong trend in the women's Final Four, especially that the team playing their first Final Four is usually defeated in the semi-final.
I feel though, like let's have the Hungarian derby in one semi-final, the Norwegian derby. I know it's Esbjerg, but half of them are Norwegians in the other semi-final. Well, talking about the players a little bit, because the FTC team is, has a few players who've been there for quite a while, and there's that little German contingent as well. You mentioned Alex, Andrea Lekic, that's come into it. Are there any players in particular, Courtney, that over the years that you're particularly happy to see getting into the Final Four for the first time?
Yeah, well, this is why I like FTC, because of the individual players. I'm a big fan of Emily Bulk and Alicia Stoller for years, before Julia Benke, who obviously left now, but as you mentioned, the German contingent, I was a big fan of that German contingent at FTC. Kluber, we've been watching for years, and she's just outstanding. So as you guys mentioned, it seems Lekic probably was like the key to come in and help these younger, less experienced, but really talented and great players to find that final key to reach the Final Four.
And Marcio Menino has just joined our audience as well. And that's just reminded me that I won't be able to say Bruna Paula this time at the Final Four because Mets haven't qualified, which I'm delighted for FTC's sake. But, Mets seemed like to be the informed team for the entire season, which makes it even more of a shock that they've been knocked out here. And I think you mentioned already there, Brian, that it was 17-17 at halftime, which is a pretty incredible turnaround. Then in the second half, a 7-goal loss, and FTC into the Final Four. Shall we shift on to the men's quarterfinals then next, or anything else we want to touch on the women's side? I mean, Esbjerg qualifying, as I said, Brian, isn't a huge surprise at the end of the day. Vipers, I think, really just cruised in there, and Jura, I think, pretty much have an automatic berth in the Final Four these days as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good that we have at least one different team for a bit of different flavour in there, because it's the exact same thing as last year. I think would be a bit stale, so it's good that FTC are in the mix. So yes, on to the men, as you said.
Well, we have Yahia here, and I think that's the matchup of the quarterfinals. That is Veszprem versus Kielce. Maybe Yahia, what's been your just perspective, being kind of on the outside, being injured? Maybe first, how are you doing? How's the injury going? I've been seeing that you've been making lots of progress. How are you feeling these days?
I'm feeling really good, actually. I think there was a lot of positive things that I gained through this injury. It's tough, it's tough news when everyone tells you what you have and you start doing the surgery and this, but the past 3-4 years have been really difficult. Living outside in Europe for the first time and playing in that rhythm in Champions League every week is really hard, especially when you're young. But I felt that it gave me a break a little bit now, so I'm just gathering up my power again, and the training is doing really good. My leg is doing really good, and I lost some kilos after the surgery. I gained it back now, so I'm training really good, and I feel I'm gonna go back now to Veszprem soon to start training a little bit with the ball and the court and stuff like this. So I took a break, and now I'm excited about handball again.
Nice.
No, that's great to hear, because of course you've been, there's been all the international competitions with Egypt, the Olympics, everything just rolling all together. that's a really good perspective on an injury to give you a mental break. That's amazing. But it's kind of being with the team and kind of seeing how the season has evolved, do you get a different perspective kind of being outside of that daily rhythm and just seeing kind of different things, how the team evolves?
Yeah, it's really different, when you're outside and inside, it's really different because in Vesper especially, it's always pressuring. The games are a lot, especially this season. They played against Szeged a lot, and this is tough, It's we were speaking about the derbies, and they played a lot of games in maybe like on 1 month and a half. It was a lot of games, and they hope, thank God that they won it all. They passed in the Champions League and they won the cup, and now they're gonna be ready for the quarterfinals and the finals four. But I feel that the season is so long, it's ups and downs and this. And when you look from outside, the perspective from me here being calm is, okay, we're doing fine. We won the cup. We're in the final for the league. We're gonna play quarterfinal. It's doing really good. But when, for sure, if you ask all the guys now, they're not in so calm like me, because they're going now and on Thursday on a really tough game, and everyone knows that Kielce is a really good team, and it's just pressuring because you have like 1 year of working and 1 year of training every day, and it all is gonna matter on just like these 260 minutes in 2 weeks. If you're in the moment, if you're playing good, then you're in the final four. If not, then come back next year.
I remember last year the first leg of the quarterfinals. I think actually we spoke to you on the podcast just before that, because you were coming up against Aalborg, and it was such an impressive first leg from the team. Then it really, like, you booked your spot in the final four with that performance at home. I think back then you had a kind of I'd say not a carefree approach to it, but you felt very confident having that first leg at home because that's the only thing you can really control at first. Do you think the team is approaching it in a similar way now? It's going to be tough going to Poland, but first leg at home is good.
Yes, I think yes, especially that it's been now after the international break and some time. They didn't have like a serious hard match in the past 2-3 weeks, and maybe people don't get it so much, but when you're playing a really tough game every week, you're used to it. But when you rest for a couple of weeks, you need like 1-2 good games to come back in your top form, because you push every day in training 100%, you push in the games, but in these like tough moments, you're giving this 120%, and when you're used to it, when you're playing frequently on the high level, you're already on the form. So it's been some weeks now that they didn't. So I feel it's really, really good for us that we play the first game at home, because you have the home advantage. You're not going to travel a day before. You have your guys resting. Hopefully and that's good news that everyone till now is healthy. We don't have any injuries. So I think it's actually good in this quarterfinal to play the first game home, and then the second, if you play a good game and you win, then the second game the pressure is on them. They want to come back from the score that they have a disadvantage, but you already have a good momentum. So I think it's good. I have the same approach like last year.
That psychological side is really interesting. Does anyone know any stats about how often it's the home team for the first game that goes through?
Rasmus Boysen.
Rasmus Boysen.
Actually, I don't know, to be honest. No, but I think that it's also funny to talk about the fact that Yahia mentioned it. Veszprém has played a lot of very, very interesting and dramatic matches against Szeged, and now also in the knockout phase. And Kielce, they haven't played in this season a lot of very, very vital matches. So that's the first very important match for them, matchup now. So I think that it will be very interesting to see how they cope with that.
I'm not putting you under pressure now, Rasmus, and I know Yaya's on the call, but who do you fancy for that quarter-final? No comment.
West have been my team since in the beginning of 2000, my second team after Scan. But so of course I support West Brom, but I think that Kielce, they maybe have a little bit more depth in the squad. I have them as small favorites, but I think that players like Rasmus Lauge and especially also Remeli, who have been integrated in the team of West Brom so fast, I think that's very, very good for them. I think that maybe the defense of West Brom is a little bit weaker than, not weak, but weaker than Kielce. So I think that Kielce might be small favorites.
How does that make you feel, Yahia?
No comment.
I think Rasmus will have the statistics in 1 hour for the whole team. So, wait.
Alex, what do you reckon?
It's a tough one. It's a really good point about Kielce not having the big games at all this season, really. And they did lose against Plotzk in the league when they did have the big one, and they have certainty around their future now, so that question mark is kind of gone. Industria have come in and saved the day, so we do thank
Barlanek as well.
And Barlanek is
the most important one.
Savior.
Yeah,
that's the most important one. Industry, they stayed. It wasn't like that terrible Polish beer that we all hate now.
Yeah, I can't even remember the name of it. Courtney, what of the other three games really stands out for you?
Oh, Plotzk Magdeburg, of course. I mean, the others we've seen a lot more of, so I always like to see something new, and I think Magdeburg are great to watch and very interesting. So that's very interesting for me. I like the Kiel PSG tie. That's always, they've played each other several times in a row now, haven't they? I hope for Kiel there. I like them.
Yeah, I think those two games are quite interesting because you have it's that kind of the Bundesliga clubs. Both teams are in the depths of a really intense Bundesliga title race, and they're giving all of their energy. But what Yahia mentioned previously is that because they're in this 120% mode, there's no difference. This is just another game, whether it's a tight game against Bergischer for Magdeburg or a quarter-final. They're going to approach it in the same way. And I think for once, both teams are fairly injury-free. Of course, Magdeburg missing Magnussen is huge, and Saugstrup as well. But they've settled into those kind of ongoing squad. I actually think that they have an advantage going into these quarterfinals as opposed to a disadvantage.
And Brian, I was going to ask you a question, Brian.
A question. I have a question for you now, just because I know you're a bit of a self-professed handball nerd. Out of the teams that are left in the Champions League, which teams do you like the style of handball or to watch as a neutral perspective? Not with your best friend goggles on, but from a purely handball, I like this style of handball.
Well, it depends on in playing against or watching, because
watching. Let's say watching first. Now let's say playing against.
Okay, I like actually Kielce how they play, because they play in really harmonic way. You see a lot of curves going on, and a lot of. I don't like teams who so much to watch who are running only, shooting only. I like to see a lot of like handball, passing, making some tactics. I like to watch these kind of teams. So I'm also a bit of biased towards the Spanish system, because I've been training with it since a long time. So Barca also is one fun team to watch. So I think I'm always on this side of handball rather than this the run and gun style way.
GOG. So you won't be a GOG ticket holder, season ticket holder anytime soon.
For me, it's actually the same as here. I also like that kind of playing system, not only run and gun, but also the defense for me is very interesting to watch. Of course, I played myself as a defense specialist, so I think that Plotsk this season has been very, very interesting to see. Sabate is a very tactically strong coach, I think, and they have the ability to play physically strong in the defense, but also to do something tactically against the other teams. I think they did that in the second match against Nantes. So I also like Plotsk to watch them play because they also offensively, I think, have some individually skilled players who are very, very strong at their own. So yeah, but I don't like where handball going right now with 40 goals by each team in each match. I like more defense. I like more physical, strong teams. So that's how it is for me.
40 goals and 40 steps.
What fun.
It's becoming a little bit like NBA. You just scored in the place. Just everybody scoring, nobody defending. Yeah.
It's true. But I mean, we have a lot of, well, Rasmus, you're just saying that because there'd be no time for you to get back in defense as a substitute. No.
Time's over.
That time's over. But Brian, we spoke to Javi Sabate a couple of weeks ago and a really interesting chat with him. I would say before once we knew that was the quarterfinal, you would have been leaning very heavily towards Magdeburg. Has he changed your opinion a little bit on how this quarterfinal is set up?
I don't know. It's not hard. I think everyone's going for Magdeburg, and I think that's maybe slightly foolish. I think Xavi Sabata is probably one of the most underrated coaches I think we have in handball. I think he kind of flies under the radar a lot, and he does a lot of good work. So I definitely wouldn't count them out. I think especially in Poland, that's going to be such a huge match for them. So they have unbelievable support there in Płock. Marcia, you've been there a few times as well. You know all about that. It's a really, really good fan base. So that game in Poland will be key for them if they're gonna progress. They're gonna have to really try and come away with a bit of a cushion there. If not, then it will be tough once they go to Germany. Then
anyone giving Georgi a chance against Barca?
I am giving them a chance. I'm giving them a strong chance. And Rasmus is shaking his head. But I want to ask you because I think we had a Twitter exchange. I think it was a private message a while ago, and I said that this GOG team is special, and I believe that. You know that it's a fantastic makeup, fantastic style. I like the run and gun style, but you said that they're not special. So why? Well, not absolutely special. I think we all recognize they're a great team. But why do you think they're just a great team and not a special team?
Yeah, of course, maybe they are special in a Danish kind of way. They play, no one play like GOG because they run a lot and they have a very special style offensively with Morten Olsen, who is, for me, one of the smartest players in the world. He has abilities to do a lot of stuff. But I just don't see them as special in the world of handball. Of course, they have made a lot of great results, but okay, going into the knockout phase, it's something else. And I have huge respect for what they've done. They have been pretty bad actually in the last month, and they have huge problems in the Danish playoffs. So for me, I don't see them having a chance against Barcelona. Barcelona is way too strong. Also, the fact that Barcelona is maybe one of the only team who could maybe run the same as GOG. So I don't see GOG could surprise them as much as they could have surprised some of the other clubs. So for me, it's very, very difficult for GOG. But yeah, they are special maybe in the Danish way, but looking historically, I don't think they are that special.
Moving on, before we move on to our central topic here for this 200 celebration of 200 episodes podcast, a quick fire, the four teams that are going through to the final four then. Courtney.
So Veszprem, Kiel, Magdeburg.
Rasmus.
I'll go with Magdeburg, Kiel, Barca and Kiel.
Yahia. Who's joining Veszprem?
Yeah, Western, Barca, Magdeburg, and I think Paris.
Alex.
I actually have the same ones as Yahia.
Brian?
Yes. Yeah, it does. I'll go for Potts. He says no one else did, so at least I'll have that soundbite that I can post online later when I'm the only one who got it right. So Potts, I'll go PSG as well. I'll go West Brom, and then I'll go.
Thank you.
Barca. You're welcome. I'll be there.
Yeah, I reckon much like we're having 2 Hungarian teams at the Hungarian women's Final Four, we're going to have 2 German teams at the men's Final Four. Got Magdeburg, Kiel, West Brom, and Georgi, no Barca. Anyone in the chat, anyone in the audience who has a completely different opinion? Merle Schach is there from Kieler Lochrichten. Too many PSGs being mentioned there for your liking?
Well, no, I mean, that's been a great quarterfinal the past 2 years. So I think, it's really interesting to see. So far, always the team who had the second leg at home won and went to Cologne. So that would point in the direction of Paris now. But I think maybe, as we've seen, Sandra Sagosen and Niklas Landin playing, great during the last weeks they have with the club and before leaving the club. And also, I remember Sagosen having not a good game 2 years ago in Paris in the decisive match. So maybe that was all set for revenge then.
At least somebody came with their stats ready to go. Thank you, Merla.
I think that's the reason why PSG will win. I'm just gonna go against that. Just gonna say that's why PSG is gonna win.
Anyway, Marcel, seeing as you jumped in there, who's joining PSG? In the other, you don't know the other quarterfinals.
Yeah, you don't know. Furiously looking up the other sides.
Because the others was I said you said West Brom. I think so. Also, yeah. I think Kielce, although they have this new sponsor, things might not be as good as they seem in the locker room. Because you never know. They missed once, they missed twice.
Conspiracy theory.
Yeah, And Barca, for sure. I think Georgi can do something at home, but the first leg is in Barcelona, so I think they'll kind of crush all the chances at home. And Magdeburg. Although Potts get home, and as Brian was saying, that crowd behind the goal is intimidating.
Can you say Magdeburg again? I love how you pronounce that. It's so Portuguese.
No. If I say it in Portuguese, if I say it in Magdeburg. If I say in Portuguese, Magdeburg,
Magdeburg, yes.
Magdeburg.
I love it.
I don't want people to be called out now on pronunciations when we're about to go into a bunch of names.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All times.
I don't know. I'm the king of that.
The Brian Campion hour. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. So on to the. So part 1 is over, and in the next episode 202, we go into the all-time all-star team for men's handball. That'll be the biggest part, and it's going to come out later this week. In the meantime, all I can say is thank you all for listening to this. Thank you to all of you who listened to us over the last 200 episodes, whether you've been with us from the very start in September 2017 or whether you just joined us a couple of days ago. It's a joy to have you all on this journey. And if you want more, including weekly short episodes, the 15-minute long Tuesday morning club, then do join us on Patreon right now. We have a bunch of different tiers to fit whatever kind of fan you are and what you would like to contribute. Please do get involved in the community, and until the next time, goodbye.